watching what's happening on live streams on the internet, and became friends with somebody that knows Ammon, who's a blogger, Pete Santilli. And, it's amazing, and here we are. It's unbelievable. So I'm glad you're all here. I just, we need Ammon. We really do. He's the only one that's going to stand up for us. The only one. When the federal government comes in, seriously, and they push on us, and they push, and they push, Ammon will stand right there. So anyways, everybody please give Ammon Bundy a warm welcome.
Thank you. Am I too loud? Can you hear me okay back there? All right, well, thank you for being here. I am grateful to be able to communicate with you, and hopefully we have a good conversation. And when we leave here, hopefully we can all be friends, and we all understand each other a little better. We can be more united in what we need to do, and understand what's happening around us. So I'm just going to try to do my best to be the conduit to make that happen. Before we do that, though, and I am going to use this presentation, so I'm thankful for this screen and this beautiful day that we have, and being outside, and the blessing it is to live like this. I don't know that we reflect enough on how great a place it is to live in the United States of America and to live in Idaho. So, this is a good example of that we can still unite without being too afraid, that we can let our kids play in the playgrounds, and we can enjoy the weather outside, and we can talk about these things. Because this is actually a rare thing. Well, it's even rare in the world today. And it's even more rare when you look at all the times of history, written history, or history that we have. This is a very rare thing that we are experiencing. And what we don't want it to be is more rare. We want it to be we want it to be duplicated. We want more people throughout time. We want our children and our children's children to be able to experience this. And that's what we're here for. So before I get going, and I don't know if you guys can see this, you might want to slide down. I really want you to be able to see the screen. So I know it's not fun to move right in the middle of something. They ask us to do it at church all the time and no one moves, so thank you. So, but I want to talk about the definition of liberty. Because I think if we can get on the same understanding here about what liberty is, about what freedom is, then I think we'll be more united, and we'll also understand what we need to do, because we'll understand what's being lost. So, anybody want to give it a shot? What is liberty? Right here.
Liberty is the ability to exercise our unalienable rights.
Okay, I would agree with that. It's the ability to exercise your unalienable rights. Rights that come from God. The right to go outside our home.
Yes.
The right to have children. The right to worship, so forth. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Anybody else want to give it a shot? I would agree with that. Anybody else? Right here.
Equal justice under the law.
Okay. So you don't believe that there should be a set of laws for those in government and a set of laws for the people? They should be the same?
That's right.
Okay. I think that absolutely would apply in order to preserve liberty. Anybody else? Right here.
Right to property.
The right to property. Okay? I definitely agree with that. That's a very important part. In fact, Karl Marx says that communism can be summed up into one sentence: the abolition of private property.
Yeah.
So if you want to know a communism, it is where all things become common and you don't own anything. And as they say now, you're going to like it.
No, I won't.
I don't think I'll like it. Okay, so I have to admit that it took me going through the experiences that I've gone through in order to truly understand what liberty is. And because I felt it in my heart. I experienced it growing up. I experienced it in business. I experienced it. I was able to do these things. You know, I felt how important it was, and I honored those that were trying to defend it. But I really hadn't defined it yet. And I want to offer you what I believe is the correct definition of liberty. Liberty is the ability to do whatever you want as long as you do not infringe upon another person's rights. So think about that. The ability to do whatever you want as long as you do not infringe upon another person's rights. Now, that doesn't make it, let's just go on. So think about that a little. Now, I'm not alone in this. We have some really good individuals that are saying the same thing, such as Thomas Paine, who said, liberty is the power to do everything that does not interfere with the right of others. Thus, the exercise of the natural rights of every individual has no limits, save those that assure to other members of society the enjoyment of the same rights. Right? Thomas Jefferson. Rightful liberty is unobstructed action according to our will within limits drawn around us by the equal rights of others. I do not add within the limits of the law, because law is often but a tyrant's will, and always so when it violates the rights of the individual. So they're saying the same thing. They're defining liberty. They're defining freedom as the ability to do whatever you want as long as you're not infringing upon somebody else's rights. Now, let's talk about this. There was a couple that are identified here. Let's look at this. So, the freedom to worship. Let's apply the definition. The right to worship whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, as long as you do not infringe upon somebody else's rights. Do you agree with that?
Right of conscience as well, because
This certainly is not the end of the list. The right of conscience, this is just a little teeny part of it. I'm just using it. You're right, the right of conscience. To be able to think whatever you want, as long as you're not going to go infringe upon somebody else's rights. What about the freedom to property? To be able to do whatever you want with your property as long as you do not infringe upon somebody else's rights. Are we losing that freedom?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Can you do whatever you want with your property as long as you're not infringing upon your neighbor's rights? As long as you're not hurting your neighbor? No, we are losing that. What about freedom to publish your thoughts? What's that called in the Constitution? Freedom to speak is this, right? Speak out whatever you want. This is the freedom of the press, right? To be able to publish your thoughts. To be able to publish whatever you want as long as you're not infringing upon somebody's rights. Freedom to travel, to be able to travel wherever you want. Freedom to trade. I like this one. I've been in business. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. And so to be able to trade with whoever you want, whatever you want, as long as you're not infringing upon somebody's rights, as long as you're not forcing someone to trade with you, or as long as you're not trading something that doesn't belong to you. Otherwise, you should be able to trade with whoever you want, however you want, and that would be freedom to trade. Willing buyer, willing seller, correct? So freedom to educate your children, freedom to speak out, and like I said, we could go on and on with this. But each one of these we can define by saying we should be able to do these things however we want, whenever we want, as long as we do not infringe upon somebody else's rights. Now, don't get me wrong. The freedom to worship, let's just use that example. Someone might choose to worship a yellow dog. Now, I wouldn't advise that, right? I don't think it's right. They're not going to receive salvation from that. Don't get me wrong. But they should have the right to do that if they want to. And our laws should protect that right. And that's where freedom comes in. So, does anybody have a really problem with that definition? Does that seem like the right definition for freedom, the right definition for liberty? If not, I'd like to discuss it a little bit here. all get friends and discuss what's happening here. So anybody contrary to that? Does it seem like a pretty good, a correct definition to freedom? So the other question I could ask, if it's not, then what is? Our ability to do whatever we want. Each man or woman should have the ability to do whatever he or she wants, as long as they do not infringe upon another person's rights.
Hey, I got a question.
Sure.
So when you talk about freedom to do whatever you want, as long as it's not infringing on somebody else's rights, when it comes to the left's definition, hurting their feelings is their right. Where's your stance on that?
That's not a right.
That's
Right?
I agree.
So you do have to understand what a right is and what it isn't.
Yeah.
There's a difference between a right and a privilege, or a right and something else. And you're correct, because the left does claim, if you want to use that definition of left, they want to claim that certain things are right, like health care is a right, free rent is a right. We know that those are not rights, right? So thank you for bringing that up, because it is important to understand what rights are too. But I don't think this group here, hopefully you kind of have an idea what rights are. So I do want to just use a little bit of the Declaration of Independence. It says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And we know that the very person who drafted the Declaration of Independence defined liberty as the ability to do whatever you want, as long as you're not infringing upon somebody else's rights. So this is the very founding document of this nation, of our country. And it's saying that liberty, the ability to do whatever you want, as long as you are not infringing upon somebody else's right, is the very purpose, to secure liberty is the very purpose of our government. So, with that being said, I'm going to show this video, and hopefully I got the sound and everything. And I know you can't see it really good. We're gonna hit a period where the sun's going to hit us. Oh, hang on.
Oh, you're not connected?
I got it right.
Okay.
Go back into this. Maybe I got it here. Idaho, to me, represents the best of what America was. Idaho was a conservative state with traditional family values, full of people of faith who carried guns, loved the Constitution, helped each other, and built businesses by the sweat of their own brow. Idaho is sliding down the path and ceasing to be the Idaho that we love. I don't want that to happen. And so I'm announcing now that I will be running as governor for the great state of Idaho. As governor, I will be implementing a plan and a platform to keep Idaho, Idaho. The Keep Idaho, Idaho plan will improve life, bring prosperity, empower and protect families, and secure the opportunity for happiness to every person living within the beautiful state of Idaho. I know how to win. My record and history demonstrates that I am willing to fight to the very end. Now it's your choice. May God bless the people of Idaho. May we live up to these blessings. May we keep Idaho a bastion of freedom and prosperity for years to come. May we be an example to the world of how to be free, of how to act, how to treat each other. And together, all of us together, may we keep Idaho, Idaho. Thank you, my friends. Thank you. How does that sound? Do we want to keep Idaho, Idaho? We want to preserve the conservative identity of Idaho. Do we want to preserve the right to worship, the freedom to travel, the freedom to trade with each other, the freedom to decide what we're going to do with our time? the freedom to be able to protect ourselves, defend ourselves, and defend our families. Is that what we want?
Yeah.
So I need to give you a little bit of background. So who, by the raise of your hand, has heard me speak before? Okay, so the majority of you by far have never heard me speak. So I want to be able to give you a little background who I am, where I came from, and the whole purpose of this is not to try to, grandize myself. I just want you to understand what makes me tick and who I really am, because there's been a lot of stories. In fact, the other day I Googled my name, and I'm like, this guy is a terrible guy. I mean, who is this guy? I'm like, anyway. So I want to correct the narrative a little bit and just give you a little bit of background. Who I am. I grew up on the Bundy Ranch, which is south of Mesquite, Nevada. It's down right next to Lake Mead in a very arid part of the country. This is my parents, Clive and Carol Bundy. I'm grateful to be raised by parents who love God, who taught me what was right and wrong. I was raised with a whole bunch of brothers and sisters, and we worked hard. And my dad taught us also when to compromise and when not to compromise. Like when was it time to say, look, let's not make a big deal out of this, and when was it time to say, yes, we have to stand, we have to make a big deal out of this. And I'm grateful for that. Here's a picture of the ranch. You can see, it's not the best lighting, but it's a very arid place, very dry, arid place. We always tease about, here's a steer that's on the hill. You can see they don't have much to eat. At least people think that when they live in countries where there's lots of grass and so forth. But they survive on that. They do actually quite well at certain times of the year. But it takes about 100 acres to produce enough feed for one cow. And so it takes a lot of area. When the first pioneers came into that area, they didn't last very long. They were sent from Brigham Young down there, and they came back just not very many months later, and they reported that it was uninhabitable, that no one could ever live there. It was too dry, too arid, and it was too hot, and they just couldn't live there. So we always tease that Brigham Young began looking for the most hard-headed, obstinate people that he could find, stubborn, and he found my family, and he sent us down there. And we've been down there ever since. They began to level the fields, divert the water out of the Virgin River. They found that there was small artesian springs up on the mountains, and they began to capture those water and divert them throughout the valley, through the foothills. And my family's been there now for almost 150 years, been running cattle ever since. My dad says that he's a producer, that what he produces for the American people. And he says, what I produce is red meat. That's what he produces. Is my father on a horse there. You can see the bull actually has some hair on the end of his horn. He probably just got done hooking the horse. This is my little brother. He's a lot bigger now. He's bigger than me. But I grew up doing this. This is what I grew up. My sister getting off the bus here, she's met by 4 dogs and a calf. And my dad actually saved that calf from his mother. She got hit on the highway, and he did an emergency C-section, pulled that calf out and saved his life. And then we bottle fed it. It was the strangest thing, because when he got big, he got to be a big bull, and he'd be out in the field, and he would lay down, and then all the dogs and the sheep would all lay together. And, it's like we have a gender identity problem now. They had a species identity problem, but this was, this is how I grew up. We were the first to get on the bus and the last to get off. It took us about an hour to get to school and an hour to get home. So we spent a ton of time on the bus. I left the ranch first and went on a mission. I served in Minnesota. I served for 2 years for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I'm grateful for that opportunity. It was a sacred time for me. And what I took away mostly, I tried to do the best I could to teach people about the gospel and do all the things that a missionary should do. But I have to say that I probably came away with more good for myself than I did for anybody else. And when I left left there, what I developed there was a desire to serve the Lord. And I was committed that no matter what I did, whenever I did it, the Lord needed to be okay with it. That He needed to be okay with what I was doing and directing what I was doing. And so I came away with that. And I'm so grateful for that time. After that, I went to, so I do have to say that when I was probably about 15 years old, my dad said, hey, look, this ranch really isn't big enough for the both of us. And he was talking, but I was in the middle of the group of all my brothers and sisters. And he was saying that there's no way that this ranch is going to produce enough living for all of my kids. You're going to have a bunch of you are going to have to go and leave the ranch and go find a living somewhere else. And so when I come home off my mission, I went to school. I went to Cedar City, or Southern Utah University in Cedar City, Utah. I started in business management, and then I also started a little business there, and I was there for a long time, not going to school the whole time, but I kept wondering, like, why am I staying in Cedar City, Utah? When I could go somewhere else, my business would do better somewhere else, but why am I here? And I figured that out after about 6 years. I was waiting for somebody. I was waiting for my wife. And I met her, and then we got married, and shortly after, just a few months later, we left Cedar City, and we went down to Arizona and began our life down there. And I took my business down there, and we ended up having six children, 3 boys, 3 girls. My 2 youngest are here. I don't know where they're at, but they're somewhere here. So Emery's saying, no, I don't want to be introduced, so she's being shy. But and we just kind of started from scratch there. And my business ended up really growing, and I ended up building a large private fleet maintenance business in Arizona. And we became one of the largest private fleet maintenance companies in all of Arizona. And I dealt with, I had hired hundreds of people, dealt with millions of dollars in yearly budgets, and we built this business from scratch. Built it up, and it became a very nice business that we were providing service for many, many people in the valley and in the state. Why do I tell you that? Because I want you to see the other side of me. I want you to see that I am, an entrepreneur, and I have executive experience, and I've dealt with large budgets, and I built and had to manage and work with people in an extensive way. I run this business for 21 years. But before I sold this business, I could see that this industry, the fleet maintenance industry, was in a serious need of technology, including software. And so I put a team together, and we got about 4 or 5 of us. I hired people and put a team together, and it took us about 4 years. And we built a software for this industry. And then we began to sell it to other shops. And now it's one of the leading fleet maintenance shop management softwares in North America. And so, people don't know that I have a tech background, that I built that business. I built multiple businesses, and they became very successful businesses. And it wasn't easy to do that. It was very hard to build a business from scratch and make it something that's worth millions of dollars and very valuable for other people to use. And so I'm grateful for that ability and that skill that I've learned to be able to do that. And I want to offer that skill to the people of Idaho. So around this time in my life, when I was in Arizona and I had this business and I had my kids, life was about as good as I think life could probably be, to be honest with you. It was the first time in my life that I had both time and money. Because usually when you have time, you have no money. And when you have money, you have no time, right? And so it was the first time in my life that I had little time and money. And I was, I was actually in prayer asking, the Lord through this was years, a period of time that I was being able to enjoy this style of life. I was asking the Lord, what does He want me to do with this extra time and this extra money? And then something happened in 2014. Anybody remember what happened to my family in 2014? Yeah. It's hard to explain. It's really hard to explain. I still can't quite believe that it happened. But basically, after 140 years of ranching in the southern Nevada desert, in an area that no one wanted, that very people could even make a living in that area, the federal government came and said basically to my father that we're going to make you stop ranching. You can no longer ranch here. And my dad, was like, wait a minute, this is mine. These are rights. They're not privileges. They're rights. Our grazing rights and property rights are deeded with the state of Nevada. We have a right to graze cattle hill. It's deeded. We've done everything legal and proper. But the federal government says, we don't care. We're the federal government. We're going to make this a mitigation area for the desert tortoise, and you can no longer ranch here. And so my dad finally just said no to them. No. And when they said, well, we're going to take it anyway, my dad said, hell no, you're not taking it. And he stood there solid. Stood there. And his argument was a very constitutional, very legal argument. And ultimately, after 20 years, almost 20 years, the federal government under the Obama administration amassed an army of men, of over 213 men, and they came down upon my family and put us under siege. It's hard to explain, but the best way I could probably give you a little bit of a vision of it, if you've seen the Hollywood movie Red Dawn. That's what they did to our little valley, with helicopters and MRAMs and guards and patrol stations and military type bases. And I say type bases because I don't want to insult the military. But that's basically what they were doing. They were following military operations. Snipers on the hills, threatening us that if we resisted in any way while they destroy our ranch, that this would be another Waco or Ruby Ridge. So my family didn't know what to do. At first, we couldn't do anything. If we would step off the paved road to even try to go onto the ranch or onto the range, they would assault us, beat us up. They threw my Aunt Margaret to the ground, body slammed her to the asphalt. They beat my brother up, sick dogs on him. They tased us. They sick dogs on my sister. She was pregnant at the time. But the thing of it is, we had some technology that they didn't have back when they did the very same thing in Ruby Ridge. And that was, we had cameras, we had phones, and we had Facebook. This was before Facebook Live, but you could take a picture and upload it, or a video and upload it. And pretty soon, the entire country, and actually even out of the country, began to see what they were doing. They were killing the cattle with helicopters, burying them in mass graves, destroying the water infrastructure that was in there for over 100 years, and was the lifeblood of our ranch, destroying the fences and corrals that took generations to build. Just destroying it like it meant nothing. Handprints of great-great-grandfathers in concrete handprints, just destroying it, throwing it in the back of a dump truck just to haul it and dump it away like it meant nothing to them. So anyway, the American people responded. They started coming from all over. They started seeing what happened and come from all over. And it was a really interesting experience to see all of a sudden this little family who was put in fear, I guess, in the sense that, they threatened our lives and there wasn't much we could do about it, what they were doing. To so many people coming that now they're the ones that are scared, hiding in their military type base. And it completely turned the whole situation right side up. And I began to realize and contemplate something that I'd never contemplated before, and I don't think ever could understand before. And that is how rights are truly maintained. I began to understand that rights are not maintained in the courtroom. Something else goes on in the courtroom. Sometimes it's not good. But the purpose of the courtroom is not to maintain rights. And rights are not maintained in the ballot box. Something else goes on in the ballot box. Sometimes the Democrats and others think that that's a whole other thing, right? But it's not. But it's not what we think. Rights are not maintained in the ballot box. Rights are maintained by claiming them, using them, and defending them. And when you can't defend them yourself, your neighbors are to come around and defend them with you. And you might be questioning now, is that right? Show me anywhere in history where rights were maintained by an election. Show me anywhere in history where rights were maintained by a court proceeding. And I'll show you how rights were really maintained. And that's why we honor those who go and fight for our rights. And when they properly do that and secure them. That's why we honor them. Because that's how rights are maintained. And we need to understand, we need to get it out of our head. We've been duped to believe that rights are maintained in the courtroom and in the ballot box. They're not. They're maintained by claiming them, saying they are mine. And by using them. And then by defending them and coming around our neighbors who need help in defending their rights. That's how they've always been defended. And I didn't make the rules. So that's what happened there. That's what happened at the Bundy Ranch. But after it, I watched 107 federal vehicles with probably over 200 people in them, or close to, leave the Bundy Ranch and never come back. It was an amazing thing. And my dad we went and got the cattle that weren't killed, put them back on the range, and my dad went back to ranching, and I went back to Arizona and went back to business. The only problem is our name now, we've had international attention, and we were just thrown out there into the limelight, and we just kept constantly being, trying to be interviewed and almost followed around and it was very strange. And we didn't ask for that. We didn't want to be thrown into the public light, but that's what happened to us. I watched my father step out of church on his flip phone, and it took an interview with a network that covered 28 countries and over 300 million people. And this was happening constantly. And so our lives were never the same. We thought we could just go back to the way it was before, but we never were able to. And it was at this time that I decided that I was going to move to Idaho. So I moved my family to Idaho, and in 2015, 2001, I'm way off there. 2015, and I live in now Emmett, Idaho. And why did I want to come to Idaho? I wanted to come to Idaho because I believed that this was the place that most likely would understand how rights are secured. That's why. That would come around your neighbor or my family or other families in defense if needs be. And I don't know why. I still believe that today, that it is the right place to be, that it is the place where people will understand how rights are maintained. Because I could promise you that we are going to have to continue to do that. We are going to have to continue to unite with each other to defend our rights. And it's going to have to be more and more. And as it becomes more and more that way, we become, liberty is more and more secure. Now, with that, I got another video I want to show you. In early of 2015, my family and I moved to Idaho. We did not know what the Lord had in store for us, but we had hoped that it was a life of peace and tranquility in a beautiful little town with wonderful neighbors. And then 2020 came around. The governor of Idaho, Brad Little, forcing innocent people to lock down in their homes, threatening force if they go to church. I don't want that to happen. I want Idaho to remain Idaho, free, because we need Idaho to be free. We need to have at least one state in this country that is an example of safeguarding American principles and liberty. There is only one elected position that can peacefully turn the totalitarian direction of the state around. That position is governor. If the people will get behind a governor that will not compromise, a governor who will not yield, a governor who has been through the fire and knows how to win, then through that position, the house of government can be cleansed and the purpose of the state can be restored. For this reason, I am running for governor. So today, I will repent of my refusal to vote. I ask you to give it one more chance with me. And together, let's keep Idaho, Idaho. Together, with the strength of the Lord, I believe we can keep Idaho free. Thank you very much. Do we need to keep Idaho free? Does the world need the example of safeguarding principles of freedom?
Yes.
We do. Idaho can provide that example. And so, but I want to talk about what's happening in Idaho. I want to talk about Idaho, and then we're going to open this up into questions. So I would like to go into some other stuff, but I just don't have the time, and this is too important. Because Idaho is in a battle for its conservative soul. We are in a battle right now. And we're not the only state that's been in this battle. And in fact, at one time, California was in this battle, and they lost. Oregon was in this battle, and they lost. Washington was in this battle, and they lost. Nevada was in this battle, and they lost. New Mexico was in this battle, and they lost. Colorado was just recently in this battle, and they're losing. So this is something that is very real, that we have to wake up to. Idaho is in the battle for its conservative soul. So just give you some ideas. Several years in a row now, Idaho has been the fastest growing state in the country. Since 2015, approximately 248,652 people have moved into Idaho. That's 20 times or 20,000 more than the largest city, Boise, in just 10 years. Now imagine adding the state, or adding a city the size of Boise to your state every 10 years. Talk about a challenge, right? Now, by all projections, Idaho is looking to continue to grow at this current rate. So we have to understand some of the challenges that we're facing just by that alone. Now, to make matters worse, approximately 36% of the people coming to Idaho are liberal-minded. And they want desperately to change the Gem State's conservative identity, conservative values, into a more liberal, progressive, woke place to live. And so what does that say to us? What do we have to do? If we do nothing, they're very active and they're growing. And they desperately want to change our state into what they think is right. Now, with the Republican Party members controlling the Idaho Senate and the House and the governor's office for the past almost 30 years, you can see here. So the last time we had a Democrat governor was in 1994. And he was way more conservative than our governor now. So, but with the Republicans controlling the Idaho government for the last 3 decades, you would think we would be the most conservative state in the United States. But we're not. We're not. So, in fact, Governor Little, we're gonna talk about Governor Little. You know, they say that it's a bad thing to say your opponent's name. I do it all the time. So, so Governor Little, I'm going to give you a little bit of facts what's happening. As a senator, he was the only Idaho state representative to support gay marriage during the Proposition 8 movement. You remember that? So it's a hard thing to believe. Also, under his leadership as governor, so this is now, Idaho has increased its food stamp program by 24.2%, more than any other state in the United States. We're the fastest growing food stamp program in the United States, here in Idaho. 24.2. You see Nevada's next, Indiana's after that, Utah. So that's some of the things that are doing. Also, Little has recently dedicated $50 million of the federal COVID money that he's received for government housing, for free housing in Idaho. Now, why is this important? Why is this important to know? Why would I say these things? Because state housing, government welfare, free food, free healthcare programs, and pushing the gay ideology have been the staple of the liberal agenda for decades. And there's no person that has moved Idaho closer to that agenda than Brad Little. So now, there's no wonder why we're in a battle for conservative soul in here in Idaho. Our leadership has failed us. They fooled us. They fooled us into believing that this man and many that are with him and beside him are conservatives, when they're not. When they're pushing the staple of the liberal agenda. And they have been for decades. And we keep thinking and believing that they're conservative. So, now if this was all I had to tell you, it would be a little easier. I'd be a little bit at ease, but it's not all. Because Idaho was the first on a few other things as well. It's not only the fastest growing state, and it's not only has increased its welfare programs more than any other state in the United States, but during Brad Little's reign as governor, Idaho has been the first of a few more things. In fact, Idaho was the first state to arrest people for attending church during the COVID lockdowns. You remember that? Always trust in chariots and others. There's the pastor of a church. They arrested 3 of them. All school, Idaho. Now, can you imagine? It's hard to imagine Idaho. Idaho is the first state to arrest pastors for going to church. Why is that? To me, to me, it really saddens me. Why is it so? Why is it so important? Why is it such an important thing? So I want to do something. I want my daughter. Are you willing?
She is.
Okay. She's going to quote the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. Go ahead. This is the first time she's done it, so she's a little shy. Go ahead.
Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and redress of the government of grievances.
Thank you, Emery. So let's just talk about this act right here. As Emery quoted, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Right? So it's completely unlawful for this to go on. Now, you might say, well, we believe in state sovereignty, right? We believe that the state can, but we have a problem with that because the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, is the supreme law of the land. But let's just, to answer any question that we might have, let's go to the state constitution. So if you go to Article 1, Section 4 of the Idaho State Constitution, it's titled Guarantee of Religious Liberty. And it says, the exercise and enjoyment of religious faith and worship shall forever be guaranteed, and no person shall be denied any civil or political right, privilege, or capacity on account of his religious opinions. So it's protected. It's completely protected. Now, if there's any further question, let's go to Section 19. It's titled Religious Freedom Guaranteed. And this is some beautiful language. Listen to what it says. it is ordained by the state of Idaho that perfect toleration of religious sentiment shall be secured, and no inhabitant of said state, that would be Idaho, shall ever be molested in person or property on account of his or her mode of religious worship. So there's no way we can ever interpret doing this as lawful. None. Yet Idaho, even though the laws are so clear, both in the U.S. and state constitution, Idaho was the first state to have pastors arrested for having church outside. We were also the first state to arrest a mother for going to the park with her children. Remember that? Meridian, Idaho. Sarah Brady. She's still fighting her case. She told me the other day she's got over $26,000 worth of legal fees that she's accumulated. Imagine that. Trying to defend yourself in Idaho for taking your kids to the park. That's what makes me so mad. Also, Idaho was one of the first states to raid businesses for not shutting down during the COVID. And we have to ask the question, why are police acting this way in Idaho?
That's right.
It's unlawful. We know. It's very unlawful. It's unconstitutional. Why are they acting this way?
They think the government pays their paychecks.
Well,
The people.
this guy right here works, he's an undercover officer for Idaho State Police. And he's going in and giving the citation to a business owner, and he says why he's doing it. Listen closely. I'm going to play it. It's right at the beginning. I'm going to play it and then I'll stop. Okay?
Real quick, this is from the state.
Would you say that again, sir?
Oh,
Hand him that letter back.
Now,
I would like to hear him identify himself again.
I'm Jim Schwecken with the Idaho State Police. I'm just delivering this letter in response to you guys opening it, in contrast to the stay-at-home order.
Did you catch that? He said, I'm issuing this because you're in contrast to the Idaho stay-at-home order. Okay? Now, just so you know, a few days later, Idaho State Police raided this business and began prosecuting the owners. Okay? Why are they doing it? He says, because of the order. Because of this man's order. That's why he's doing it. Because he ordered us to do it. Now, we might need to give Brad Little a break, right? Let's give him a break. Okay, so we don't give him a break? Okay, let's pretend. Let's pretend to give him a break. Okay, let's just pretend to give him a break. Let me get this. Because I want you to open your minds up to something, if you will, of the possibility. But we're going to investigate this, the possibility. The possibility that Governor Little, he did it for the health and safety of the people of Idaho. Okay, no, I'm asking you to open up your mind, right? Like, don't reject this yet. Like, we're going to go through this. Like, we're going to go through this like a court process. I've been through court processes quite a bit, right? The jury is still out whether I'm famous or infamous. But why did he do this? Did he do this for the health and safety of the people of Idaho?
No, for the government.
Okay, so let's go through this. Does anybody remember what date that he put the state of Idaho in a state of emergency? So it was March 13th. So 2020, he put the state of Idaho in a state of emergency. And he said he was doing it for the health and the safety of Idahoans. However, it just so happened to be that on March 13th, 2020, it was the same day that President Trump announced in a press conference that he was releasing $50 billion of federal funds to states that were in an emergency status. Okay? On the very same day that Governor Little issued the state of emergency. Now, let's look at this further. On March 13th, Governor Little, in his own website, the official governor's website, on March 13th, he said there was only one confirmed COVID case in Idaho. Okay, so one case. And he put the state in a state of emergency. And it happened to be the same day that President Trump says, if you're in a state of emergency, you can qualify for this $50 billion. Okay? Well, let's go on. Who remembers when Governor Little put the state of Idaho in extreme state of emergency? Anybody remember that? It was just a few days later on March 25th. He went from state of emergency to extreme state of emergency. Well, it just so happened to be that that was the same day that President Trump and Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced a $2 trillion relief packages for states that were in extreme emergency status. At the time, we had 0 deaths and 136 unconfirmed COVID cases. And they called it the novel coronavirus, right? So, again, let's take his evidence. So, because we're questioning whether he did it for the health and safety of the people of Idaho, we're questioning that, and we're starting to see that he might have done it for another reason, right? Well, he starts to tell us this. Right here, this is in his own orders. To secure millions of dollars in funds. Whereas on March 13th, when the first case of COVID was confirmed, basically he did this. President Trump said they're going to be releasing funds. And then right down here, section 46601. He says the authority in which he's doing that. Remember, 46601, just put that 01. That's an Idaho code, 46601. Put that in the back of your head. Right here, he's thanking President Trump for $1.25 billion that they've received. And then this is an interesting executive order, 2020-07. It says that he's establishing a protocol to basically for the coronavirus funds. And he says, whereas I issued a proclamation on March 13th declaring a state of emergency, whereas I issued a proclamation on March 25th declaring a state of extreme emergency in the state of Idaho, whereas Congress has passed and President Trump has signed 3 legislative packages that provide state funding in response to COVID-19, whereas I anticipate additional congressional actions on federal relief packages to states regarding COVID-19. It's all about money, right? He says, because of all this money that's coming in, now therefore I, Brad Little, the state of the state of Idaho, do hereby order the creation of a COVID-19 Financially Advisory Committee comprised of members appointed by and serving at the pleasure of the governor. So he's putting this committee together. And they're going to decide where all the money. But what's this committee? His buddies. That he appoints and that serve at his pleasure. And they get to decide where the funds of all the funds that are coming for all from the federal government, all this COVID funds, right? And he says right here, this is important. This is the last page of that same order, 2020-07, for the coronavirus relief funds and other funds to be administered by the office of the governor. So it's going to come to us, and my buddies and I, we're going to decide where it's going to go. We're going to administer it. Now, how are the funds of Idaho supposed to be administered? Who's supposed to administer it? The legislature. You guys, some groups don't know. You guys are well educated. The legislature. So Governor Little bypassed the legislature. Now, why is it important that the legislature administers the funds of the state? Because we elect them, right? They represent us, they go there, they all argue about it, battle, and then they finally vote on it. And it's to make sure that the tax money gets protected and it doesn't get in the hands of a small group of people and used to line their own pockets or for corruption or misuse for other purposes, right? That's why we do it this way. But yet you see what Governor Little did? He brought it down to just him and his buddies. Right? Just him and his buddies. Now, are we talking about a little bit of money and not very much? We're not real worried about it. It wasn't a lot of money. Anybody have an idea how much money is received that we know of?
40% of the budget.
$18.7 billion. Over 2 times the annual state budget. That's how much came to the office of the governor, and him and his buddies decided how they're going to spend it. And they bypassed the legislature. All right, now if that was all he did, well, I want to give you a couple more evidence because he just came out. I'm going to use this a couple times, but he just came out in March 2022, just this March, and he had a press release. This is when he said, "I'm going to end the order," because he held on to this power for a long time. And he says right here, I'm going to end the order, and he says, if I didn't do the emergency order, he says, without the emergency declaration, the state of Idaho would not be able to provide Idahoans with historic tax relief. Okay? Now, I don't know if you got this letter, but he said, this is from Governor Little, and he sent this out to many people, and he sent a check to them. He says, my fellow Idahoans, the economy of Idaho continues to blow past projections, and we are leading the country in economic prosperity. We achieved historic tax relief for Idahoans for a second year in a row. We are returning your tax dollars with a record budget surplus. Now let's think about this. Is he insulting the intelligence of the people of Idaho? Yeah. During the darkest years of the pandemic, we know that there was no surplus before 2020, and he's saying during 2020 and 2021 that Idaho accumulated a surplus, and they were so good with the money that now they're returning it back to the people. That we have so much money. But it's not because of Idaho's economy, like he's trying to play. It's because he received so much money, now he's going to buy back your vote. He's going to try to buy your vote back. And he believes the people of Idaho are stupid enough that they're just going to believe him. They're going to think that, oh, what a great manager of our funds. He's so good at managing our funds that during the darkest days of a pandemic, he creates a surplus. When businesses were shut down, we weren't going to school, weren't going to church, no one was going to work, and now they have a surplus? So we can see what's happening here. Now, if this was all that he did, we could probably maybe even forgive him, correct him, and get this straightened out, right? That's not all he did. I want to show you this, because you remember that 46601, that code that he said he had authority to, that's what he was doing this under this authority? Well, here it is, 46601, this is Idaho statute. It's titled 46, Militia and Military Affairs, Chapter 6, Martial Law and Active Duty, Authority of the Governor. He used this law, this statute. It's never been used before. And this is what he did. Let's look down here. He implemented this on the people of Idaho, all of us. It said, during a period of state of extreme emergency, the governor shall have complete authority over all agencies of the state government, including all separate boards and commissions, and the right to exercise within the area of regions wherein the state of extreme emergency exists, all policing power vested in the state. You see what he did here? He implemented a never used before statute, saying that the state was in extreme state of emergency, and he took control over all agencies of the state government, including all separate boards and commissions, and all policing power vested in the state. What do we call that?
Dictatorship.
That's right. A dictatorship. We do not believe in this form of government.
Amen.
We believe in representative government. We are the sovereign. The people are the sovereign. And here he not only consolidated all the money that was coming from the federal government because of this fake emergency that he created, but also he consolidated all the powers of government, of the state government, under his control. And he hung on to that power for over 700 days. 700 days. Go ahead. I'm not done yet, but if you want to hold your question.
I just want to say that that is not constitutional, because in the Idaho Constitution, the emergency power rests with the legislator, and the second article says that it is unconstitutional for one branch of government to transfer the power to another.
Thank you very much.
Amen.
You're right. So there was a problem before, thank you. There was a problem before with legislation, but Governor Little used this. He used this and implemented it. And it put every Idahoan's life in a precarious situation. And so what did they do with this? Well, he implemented this. This is the outline of the self-isolation order. It says, this order directs all individuals living in the state of Idaho to self-isolate at their place of residence. So he's ordering you, because he took power, he's ordering you to stay in your house. Says, except that you might leave, if you're engaged in certain activities, essential businesses. Says directing all businesses and government agencies to cease non-essential operations, prohibiting all non-essential gatherings of any number, including churches. This is why he was arresting people for having church. This is why he was arresting mothers for going to the park. This is why he was arresting people for assembling, because he thought he had the power to do that. His order said he had the power to do that. Ordering the cessation of all non-essential travel, stopping us from traveling. Right? Now, so we're asking the question, why did he do this? Did he do it for the health and safety of the people of Idaho? No. In his own press release on March 8, 2022, so this is just recent, he said, I kept Idaho open, banned vaccine passports, never issued mandates for vaccines or masks. He's actually now saying that I never did any of this. He says, the emergency declaration served as an administrative function to recoup FEMA dollars for a variety of needs throughout Idaho. The emergency declaration never violated or restricted any rights of Idahoans, never put Idaho on lockdown, and it never allowed for mandates for masks or vaccines. These are the facts. This is what he's saying now. Right? But he's telling us right in the mix of this why he did it. Without the emergency declaration, we would not be able to provide historic tax relief. A step that is even more important now as gas prices and inflation soar. Without the emergency declaration, Idaho would not be the state with the strongest economy in the nation. What caused the inflation, and what's caused the inflation? Yeah, it's all these governors and all these government entities taking billions, trillions of dollars of federal money and distributing it all out when people haven't earned it and produced. That's what causes inflation. So, the fact that he would say this, it's just, what do I say? What do I say, right? And it's this is the reason why he had people arrested for going to church, why he had mothers arrested for going to the park, why he had business owners raided and prosecuted. This is why he did it. And in fact, one of the last pages of the order, page 9 on section 9 of his emergency order, it says, the director requests that sheriff and chief of police in the state of Idaho and the Idaho State Police ensure compliance with and enforce this order. The violation of any provision of this order constitutes an imminent threat to public health. So he used the force of law to prosecute, to arrest, to enforce his orders. So I hope that I've given you a little bit of taste here of evidence. I try not to just say what I'm saying. I'm giving you evidence of what he's done and who he is and why it is very important that we answer what he has done with removing him from office.
Amen.
All right, let's look at the time here. I want to answer your questions, and I'll answer any question that you ask me the best I can.
Why did he lift the emergency order?
Why did he lift it? There's one big reason why. It's because there was an election coming.
So the House had passed a bill that said he had to lift it. The bill was going to the Senate, and 3 days later is when he lifted it.
Well, I understand that, and that pressure was all coming, but he could have easily just vetoed the bill, right? But I'm glad that the House was finally pushing, and maybe the Senate would have pushed, because even for the establishment people, for a lot of the establishment people in Idaho, Governor Little even went too far for them. So I want to ask any question, any thoughts or question right here. When do you know where you get it? I know you get it online all over. It's
Yeah,
easy
you
to
get it
get
free
online.
from the state. You get it free
I don't know
from the
where I
state.
got this. Where do we get these?
There's somebody out east here that publishes them. Rebecca knows.
And there's some organizations that publish them. This is a really great copy, except my eyes are getting where I can't hardly read it. It's small writing. But online, it's all over online. And we need to be familiar with the Constitution. It is the law of this land. And the U.S. Constitution as well. We have U.S. Constitution. Sometimes we carry state constitutions, but I think we're out. We're out. Let's see. What else?
The final question I have, since you've already heard this, but I thought I had announced it out loud, and I'm going to combine it together. Yes, the governor can issue the order, but for example, the people carrying out the order, like the police, they're still under, or even military, they're still under an oath to support the Constitution. So what do you think is an appropriate punishment for, say, police who illegally arrest someone like the police who are arresting the woman who was taking the children to the park, like the people who were raiding the ones in Russia, they did not have the constitutional authority to do that, and they're breaking their oath. What do you think is the appropriate punishment for the people who carry that out, to send them a message that they shall not step on our rights, they shall not break unconstitutional law, and that they shall obey only constitutional orders, not orders, but laws, and disobey anything that is unconstitutional?
So why? Okay, I'm going to answer your question. I'm going to ask a question to everybody, or at least propose a trust. Why did these individuals take an oath to both the U.S. and the state constitution? Why did they take an oath? Why does every officer take an oath to the Constitution in Idaho state and U.S. Constitution?
Supposed to be public service.
It is. It's supposed to be public service. But the reason why is so when a man like this orders them to do something that is contrary to this, they say no.
That's right. They're supposed to.
They took an oath to uphold the Constitution. And they took it so that this was the primary thing that they, authorization that they act under. Right? And so when a man like this tells them that they're supposed to do something like this, they're supposed to say no. It's a violation of my oath.
Amen.
And how clear could it be? We went over it, right? It's clear that they are not to prohibit the free exercise of religion. They are not.
They work for the
And
people.
so, what we have a whole bunch of oath breakers.
That's right.
We do. And so we have an issue. Yeah, we could fire them, but go ahead.
Do we know anyone that upheld their oath during this time frame?
Yes, there have been. And in fact, I was actually involved in one. I don't know if you remember, my son plays football, and they had a game with Caldwell High School. I went to the game, and they wouldn't let me in because I didn't have a mask. And I was like, okay, I didn't want to make a scene. So I decided I was going to go on the backside and just watch it from the fence, way out of the way. And the school administrator didn't want me to do that. She was so adamant about me not doing that. She called the cops, called the police. And the police came out, they evaluated the situation, and they told the school administrators that they were not going to arrest me. And that they would not do that. And they actually, in a way, even protected me. So it's very rare. I've only had it happen one time, and it was so strange to me that it was the other way around. But there are some that will. But the majority by far just obeyed orders. And it is a problem. They took an oath for a reason. And so what punishment? Well, as I said earlier to you, I do not believe in having two sets of laws. One for the government and the officers and one for the people. Whenever that happens, it's very detrimental to the people. And so they should be charged, prosecuted according to the law. Okay, what other questions do we have? Right here.
repeat that question, ma'am? And
What do I sound like? She said she's new to Idaho. She doesn't know who I am, what I am. Am I Democrat? Am I Republican? Or what? So, what do I sound like? Do I sound like I'm conservative? Do I sound like I would be someone who would stand and protect rights, the rights of the people of Idaho?
We're sorry.
We'll forgive you. She said she used to work in the governor's mansion. Oh, in Utah. Okay. Well, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here, to introduce myself to you. And I mean, so to answer you, to answer the question, I guess, of what I am, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ. I did start my campaign as a Republican, but before the deadline, I could see what the Republicans were going to do in their own primary, how they were going to control their own primary. And I left the Republican Party and ran as an independent, so I can challenge Little. Thank you for that question. What else? Right here.
I was not stepped away, our governor, Dennis McGee. How do you feel about that?
Well, they certainly had a little spat. And both of it was, they were looking for some political capital. I look at what, here Governor Little is in his own orders, right? He's saying that he never violated any rights, never mandated masks, all of that, right? And then on the backside of it, when Janice McGeehan would say, she was trying to use basically the power of the governor, because when he left, she had that power, to say that no entity in Idaho could force masks, or I think masks, I don't think she did it with vaccines. Knowing that a few hours later, Little was going to come back and undo it, right? But here, so I look at it like it was a good political stunt that brought good publicity to Janice McGeehan and got kind of her group rallied because they liked what she was doing. But it also further exposes Governor Little in what he's saying now, that he didn't violate anybody's rights, he didn't force mask mandates, all of that. So, I mean, that's how I look at it. I believe that what we have to do here has to last more than a few hours. What we need to do in the governor's office, what we need to do in the governor's in our government has to last for decades, generations. And so, anyway, I don't really have an issue with any of that. Now she's not running. What was your original question, though? I want to make sure I answer that.
You answered it. Thank you.
Okay, right here.
What do you have to say about President Trump? And we talk about all the draft bills we did, but he was set up and enabled by President Trump. And I'm assuming we got a lot of Trump supporters here, but don't we have to look back and see where the real trouble came from? Yeah.
So, yeah, it's hard because President Trump did a tremendous amount of good. But I watched President Trump really close. I was watching him very close in March of 2020. And I could see that he was very close. It appeared to me he was very close to calling bluff on all of this. And it looked like he was going to go that direction, like he was just going to, go that direction. And I was like, praying for him and really hoping that he would. And then all of a sudden he must have been convinced or duped otherwise. And he just, President Trump, when he does something, he goes full blast into it. And so he went full blast into that. And he offered this $50 million. And what happened as soon as he offered this $50 million to states? What happened? All of a sudden, all the states became in emergency status, just like Idaho, so they can qualify for that money. so it makes me upset because I say Trump paid for COVID. And he did. And what did they do? Then they offered $2 trillion. Then they get into the vaccines and all of that. And even though I'm grateful for President Trump and many things that he did, I'm not very happy with the way he handled COVID. And he helped pay for COVID. There's just no way around it. Like President Trump, don't like President Trump, he paid for COVID. And there was enough money out there that they could market this thing like no other, no other product or effort has ever been marketed before. They had trillions of dollars to market the COVID, and that's what they did. And where did that come from? It came from the federal government. It came from the White House. Go ahead, and then.
I was saying that's why we're getting all these YouTube, Facebook ads for vaccines that's coming from the state of Idaho for all that money.
They took that money, they started marketing campaigns, and then, it's amazing. They just, in every way, they pushed this thing. The hospitals were getting $39,000 if they put you on a ventilator. They were getting $9,000 if they declared that you were a COVID patient. Just immediately, they're a COVID patient, $9,000. Oh, let's put them on a ventilator, $39,000. Just immediately. Well, what do you think that's going to do? They're going to make everybody a COVID patient and push as many people as they can on ventilators. So, and it was all coming from these funds that came from the White House. So the reality is Trump helped pay for COVID. And I believe, to be honest with you, it's one of the reasons why he lost the elections. So.
He didn't lose, it was rigged.
Well,
Come on, wake
let's
up.
not. I'm awake. I'm 1 word awake.
I know the truth.
But listen to this. He had 2 elections, right? Both of them were hard. He won the first one on a landslide. He would have won the second one on a landslide. But he ostracized a huge base of his. Why? Because he went into this COVID thing. And when you're going against people like the Democrats, the wicked liberals, you have to do it with the attitude that you beat them so bad that even their mothers admit that you won.
You don't let him in the sandbox.
That's right. And that's how we beat him on the first go-around, but he couldn't beat him on the second go-around because he lost a huge part of his base because he got caught up into this garbage. Right here.
It is really up to we, the people, each and every one of us to get educated on every aspect to stop the steal from 2020, to stop Brad Little from doing everything he's done, and for us to get educated on COVID, the vaccine, the IRS, printing of money, and Trump, sir, and I'm sorry I'm getting so upset. I don't know what you all know, but this whole Trump administration was a military sting operation to set up to catch all of these evil that's been going on for the last 5 decades in this country, and then some.
So let me ask you this.
And I'm from Virginia. I just moved here. I came from a Democratic state with a freaking Democratic governor who has finally lost the election. Who Brad Little is a freaking rhino, just like Ralph Northam.
I think, wasn't that the state that the person who won, spent like, it wasn't even a tenth of the money of the other incumbent, and he beat him. So I'm going to take this back from you. Why, if we allow Governor Little to be reelected, what message are we telling him and his buddies? That this is okay to arrest mothers. This is okay to take our rights that we love and turn them into privileges that the government gets to control. Do you think that the next 4 years is going to be any better? No. If we say, what you did, Governor Little, is okay, what do you think the next 4 years is going to be like?
Worse.
So that's what we're answering right now. That's what we're answering. That's what we are. Thank you. So this is where we're at. This is the question we have to answer. And that's why I got out of the Republican primary and ran as independent, because I wanted to give you a choice. I wanted to make sure you had a choice. All right, any other questions before we wrap this up? Right here.
What are you gonna do for homeowners in Idaho if you're elected?
The homeowners?
Yeah.
Good question. How about eliminate property tax? So I do intend on eliminating property tax. I do intend on rallying the legislature to create legislation that will eliminate that tax. And I think that is something that we absolutely need to do. Along with other taxes as well. Now, what's the question? What's the scare? What's the fear of if you eliminate property tax? What's the
Where's the money come from?
yeah, where's the money come from, right? I get that every time. I like people asking me that question because, there's a practical side of things. And that is we do have sheriff's departments, we do have legitimate purposes of government that need to be paid for. And so I am proposing that we completely get rid of property tax and replace it with a consumption tax. And let me explain that to you. It doesn't take long, but if you'll bear with me. So our current property tax system is basically this. Let's say your home is valued at $400,000, which actually is right around the average value of homes in Idaho. It's crazy, but $400,000. And let's say, so the average property tax per year would be $2,000 to $3,000, depending on the county you're in. So the tax collected in a 30-year period would be $60,000 to $90,000. So that's the number that we're saying that we need to get equivalent to, right? Now, I believe in downsizing government, minimizing the cost. I believe that is a lot. I believe that it needs to be minimized, that we shouldn't be spending that much money, but let's just try to get to this point. What's the problem with this system, though? What's the problem with property tax, our property tax system? You never own your own property, right? You never own it. You are basically a renter. So your entire life, you have to pay the government to just stay into your home. So let's replace it with a consumption tax, is what I'm proposing. We take the same $400,000 home, and let's say we put a 5% consumption tax that's due at the time of purchase. So basically a consumption tax is a sales tax. So it's due at the time of the sale, $20,000. You have to pay the state $20,000 when you buy a home. Now you could roll that into the mortgage if you need to, because some people just don't have $20,000. They roll it into the mortgage, and it actually equivalates to less than what you're paying a month for your current property tax. But the thing is $20,000 is a far cry from the $60,000 to $90,000 we need. So you have to understand or take into account that the average home sells 3 to 5 times in a 30-year period in Idaho. So the taxes collected in a 30-year period with $60,000 to $100,000. So it more than pays for the legitimate purposes of government. But what is the difference? Once you pay it, you own your home. The state can't lien your home anymore. And so, why is that so important? Why is it so important that we get rid of our current property tax system?
It secures property rights.
It secures property rights. Remember what the single sentence of communism is? The abolition of private property. Our property tax system is a communist a system. In fact, let me back this up a little bit. Well, let's look at the 30s. More people in the 30s during the Great Depression lost their homes to the state because they couldn't pay property tax than they did to the mortgage companies, to the banks. So, that's a good indicator. And right now in Idaho, every day people are losing their homes. It's usually the elderly, but it's also the disabled or those who lose their job for a long period of time. They lose their home because they can't pay the property tax. It is a way for the state to take our property. Now, let's look at history. Who's heard of the American Dream before? American Dream, right? We've been led to believe that the American Dream is that, you come to America and you get rich. But that's not what the American Dream was. That's kind of what we've morphed it into because so many people have done that. But what the American dream was that you can come from anywhere in the world and you can own your own property. Our people, in the 1600s, 1700s, they were dreaming about coming to America because they could own their own property. Where everywhere else you had to pay a lord or a king or somebody else, they claimed all the land. And then if you wanted to use it, you had to be a serf and pay tribute to use it. You had to pay tribute to them. But in America, you could come and be your own king. Even if it was only on 5 acres, 160 acres. You could be your own king. You didn't have to pay someone to use your own property. But then sure enough, we began to implement things like our property tax systems. And we put that exact same thing that the rest of the world had and that the people came to dream of, we actually implemented it here in our own country. And now what do we have to do? We're like serfs that have to pay tribute in order to stay on a piece of God's earth. And we need to get rid of it. And we can get rid of it and still pay for the legitimate purposes of government. And we just need to get rid of it to protect our private properties. Yeah, go ahead.
Is there any state that does not have property tax?
So there's counties that don't. And there's some states that kind of duplicate this system, except they duplicate this and charge property tax. Okay? So, great question, right here.
Isn't the property taxes declared and administered by the county, not the state?
So it's statutory by the state, but then it's administered and collected by the counties. And that would be that we would do the same thing with this. We do the same thing. It's important that we keep it as local as we can, but we would do the exact same thing with this. So, great question. What else?
What is needed for you to win the election of Governor Little as an independent?
Okay, good question. So,
And how
let
do
me
you get
see.
those votes?
Let me, if you bear with me, I'm going to see if I can quickly get on here. So, the question was, what do I need to win? What do I need to win? How do I win? It's a good question. So I'm going to get off here. I'm going to get on the internet. And I'm going to show you something. We've used our skills here, and we built our own campaign software. And one of the things that we have in here is we have all the demographics of the state. So I want to show you something. So you get in here. Question was, I'm on my phone, so it's pretty slow. Okay, so I'm going to show you right here. So Republicans, they're in the state of Idaho right now. There are 588,461 Republicans in Idaho. Registered Republicans. Okay? Now, let's talk about what's happening to the Republicans right now. The question was, how do I win? Okay? What's happening? Anybody go to the Republican convention this last so a handful of you, right? So they just kicked the establishment chairman out and put in a conservative chairman. We also saw a primary where Governor Little did win. He won, and he actually won fairly significantly with 52%. But if you add all the other conservative candidates that were in it, it tallies to 47%. 47 to 52%. So 47% did not, of the Republicans, of these registered, not all of them, of course, voted, but 47% did not vote for Governor Little. Now, there's another factor in there. We know that 36,000 Democrats registered as Republicans, or at least 36,000 Democrats all of a sudden disappeared, and they appeared, 36,000 right around there appeared in the Republicans. So, and they voted for Little. So if you take those away, the Republican Party is pretty much split, right down, almost 50-50. Split, establishment, non-establishment. or conservative Rhino, right? So let's just go with that number. Let's split the Republican Party. Now, in the generals, the way that the Republicans, the establishment, has always controlled Idaho election is the election was decided in the Republican primaries. Well, that's why I got out, right? Because in the generals, it's not just the Republicans voting. There's other groups. Like, for example, let's go to the unaffiliated voters in Idaho. And let's see how many of them there are. 280,000. There's 280,000 unaffiliated voters. Now let's say I get half of them or even a third of them, and I add them to the 50% that are disgruntled by the 50% of Republicans that are disgruntled by the rhinos in the Republican Party, right? I add them. And then let's see what's in the Libertarian Party here. There's 11,337. Well, let's get a big part of them. Libertarians, you know, they believe that in freedom too. Constitutional Party, we got 41,000 or 4,100. Excuse me, not very many, but we won't even go to Democrats. But I'm going to answer something else, and then there's a tremendous amount of people that have moved in from the state. Remember, 36%, give or take, of people moving in the state are liberal-minded. But what does that leave the rest? And we know that many, many people, about 200,000 people, have moved into Idaho through COVID. Not quite. I think it's like almost 150,000 actually, moved into Idaho, fleeing from other states. And many of them are not registered to vote yet, but will register to vote in the general election. And we believe we'll get a bunch of them. So you start to put these voting blocks together, and you see what's happening to the Republican Party here, and you can see that there is a real chance, a real opportunity here, an opportunity that we haven't had for several decades here in Idaho, for someone like me, an independent, to win the governor's seat, to win the election. So hopefully that answers your question. Now, the one question that people, and what you'll hear, especially as things get going here, is you'll hear that, I'm going to split the vote and get a Democrat in. Okay? Well, let's look at the Democrats. How many Democrats are there in Idaho? 132,389. So it's very difficult statistically for them to get a governor in, even if the conservative votes are split. Very difficult. Okay? So, hopefully that answers your question.
Okay. What should we do?
Well, what we need to do is we need to do this over and over. But I need you to go out and I need to do three things. First of all, I need you to go to votebundy.com. And I need you to go there, and I need you to click on here and subscribe to my email so that I can communicate with you. So when I send out videos and information, you can distribute it out to your friends. And I need you to be brave enough to do that. Today we had a parade in American Falls. I can tell you, this is a true story that happened today. I haven't even told Wendy this. And there was a guy that came, he was all excited, he comes up and he wants a picture. So he takes a picture, him and his daughter and myself and the background of the RV and all that, and he's all excited. And then he goes back and his wife says, honey, you really shouldn't have taken that picture. That could really hurt your business. So after the parade was over, we parked over by the gas station and he comes around and he requested, he goes, will you please not post that picture? Will you please not post that picture? That, my friends, is the problem with that's the problem right now. This is why we're in the situation we're in. I need we have to be brave. Don't do it for me. We have to be brave. We have to say to our friends, look, this is the choice. This is where we're at. We have to communicate. We've got to go to our contacts and say, look, I'm going to send this. I might offend a few people. but I'm going to send this. We have to. We have to, if you want to have a conversation with your neighbors, anybody have an idea what they could do very easily? You want a conversation with your neighbors? Just put a money for government yard sign in your front yard.
Already did.
All of a sudden, all these conversations, right? And then you can battle for me. And then they'll be like, maybe CNN and, maybe Google isn't accurate. And then they go to my website and then they come to an event and they see that it's completely different than what they've been told. So that's the battle. And then also, I need you, if you can, and if you can't, I still need you to, but I need you to donate. To get the material out to the people in a massive amount, it costs a lot of money. I'm not worried about the gas in the RV and all of that. I'm talking about being able to disseminate media through TV, radio, social media ads, paid ads, all of those things. It costs money, so I need people to donate. And those are the 3 things I'm asking them to do. Right here.
Okay, so all of that press that you've already gotten, can you say what that is and what we need to say if we hear it from our friends?
It's under license.
Yeah, so the best way to do that, because I could be here for probably 10 days. But we've addressed this. This is the reason, one of the things, go to the votebundy.com. Votebundy.com. 3 lies, top 10 reasons. The Keep Idaho plan. And it begins to address those things. If you go further down, you can see, there's other issues. How would I have handled COVID? The Keep Idaho plan. That's very important. People see that and read this, and all of a sudden here it's all broke down. You go in here, you click on here, it explains all of it. So it's all broke down for people to understand and read. It's all here, and you can take and grab this plan, copy this, and send it to your friends.
Go to about at the top.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Go to about.
Lies and smears at the bottom of that drop down. I think that does more than just
Oh,
3
hang on.
lies and
Lies and smears.
Yep.
Yeah, there's more.
It explains it all.
So
There's your answers.
there's
right there.
a whole bunch of stuff that it's addressing. So we've done the best we can to try to make the truth available to people to share. But you have to go to the website. So very good question. Thank you. All right, right here. I think I've skipped over here a couple times. I apologize.
I just wondered if you've heard of the World Convention of States. I know that the Convention of States want to come to the state.
Right.
That gives the people the power back.
So I have. Let me answer the question. So I have heard of it, and I've actually been in communication with the guy that's head of over all of the in Idaho. He's actually taken my yard sign, put it in his front yard, and so forth. My concern with the Convention of States is simply that I believe that the Constitution needs to be enforced, not changed.
Amen.
I just believe it needs to be enforced. And I'm afraid, what's the possibility of them going to a convention? It's well within our authority. There's no question that. But what's the possibility of us going to a convention with the people that we see right now and what they're doing in our states and so forth, going to a convention and coming back with something better than we already got? And so, I don't discourage it. I'm not against it, but I just don't think that it's the best thing to do.
I like the idea that it makes the federal government, more compliant. Let's do permanent.
Okay, so yes, it does, but there's a design. That is one of the designs and mechanisms that the founders gave us. But we also have the 10th Amendment, where the states are supposed to check the federal government, but they're not. So even if we change the Constitution, there's nobody there that's enforcing it. But imagine if we could get control of the mechanism of the state of Idaho, and we could start saying no to the federal government. No. In fact, I'm going to wrap this up. This is something that we're really working on, so it's kind of work in progress. But I want to emphasize basically the 8 planks to the Keep Idaho, Idaho plan. Right? Number 1, protect private property. Number 2, eliminate progressive taxes. Number 3, free Idaho from the federal government, from federal control. Number 4, make Idaho independent again. You know, at one time we were a very independent state. We could pay our own bills. We can't pay our own bills right now. We have to get money from the federal government. Number 5, bring back the rule of law. Number 6, make Idaho an economic powerhouse. There's no reason why Idaho shouldn't be an economic powerhouse. We are resource rich. We still believe in work. We have the ability and the natural resources to be able to be an economic powerhouse. All we have to do is apply the principles of freedom. Number 7, secure the quality of life for every Idahoan. And number 8, make Idaho an example of peace and prosperity to the rest of the world. That's my plan. I want to say that Idaho is not just a beautiful state, although it is. And it's not just full of beautiful people, because it is. But it's a beautiful idea. It's a beautiful idea. It still is an idea of prosperity, of freedom, of individualism, of being able to live the way you want to live. And so does the world need that. We need to be that example. And I think if we straighten these things out, we have a great opportunity here. And with that, I hope that I can have your support in doing that. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ammon. Thank you very much. Listen, everybody, I've got yard signs, and you're welcome to take them. I've got more in the car. I'll go get them. And we've got shirts and caps. Have at it. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate you guys.
Anyway,